Find your future by exploring your world. The Massachusetts School of Law challenges their students to explore the important issues of our time, learning from experts in fields like politics, sports, and business law. From first-hand accounts and dramatic reenactments, in-depth conversations with society's leaders, from historians to lawyers, from high-tech professionals to environmental experts. The Massachusetts School of Law at Andover presents MSLAWTV112Day.
Thank you for joining us. The question for today's show is this: who the American woman is today? The quest for the answer is found in the scores of women showcased in the book, A Day in the Life of the American Woman. A short time ago, 50 top USA female photographers searched for the answer to the question. Their work is portrayed in this rich, compelling, inspiring book. But let's take a look. First, let me introduce one of the three authors, Carol Celine. Carol is the principal essayist for the book. She is an acclaimed journalist and best-selling author. Among her more than 30 honors are 3 Clarion Awards from the National Association of Women in Communications. Since 1972, she has worked as a senior writer at Philadelphia Magazine. Welcome to the show, Carol.
Thank you.
We are delighted to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. And I'm Diane Sullivan, your host for today's program. Carol, let's begin by discussing the project. Tell us about this wonderful book, A Day in the Life of the American Woman.
Well, it was very exciting to be brought into this project. I had written the book Sisters and Mothers and Daughters and Best Friends. And through a coincidence with my agent, who knew the people who had worked on another Day in the Life book called A Day in the Life of the Armed Forces, they wanted to do a book about women. And when they heard that she was connected to us, they brought us all together, and it was one of these like, perfect, because they wanted to bring the sensitivity, the sensibility of sisters to a book about American women. So we started to work on this about 2 years ago, actually. We got together in a big conference room with a lot of Reese's peanut butter cups, and we talked about what kind of a book we want, how to shape it. We spent the next year and a half putting together a proposal, then looking for ideas, newspapers, magazines, gathering names of women, looking for the 50 photographers that we wanted. We knew we wanted this project to be all women, women photographing women, women writing about women. Then the shoot day came, April 8th. We had 50 photographers working all over the world, literally. We were in China, we were in Iraq, we were in Alaska, Hawaii, all over the United States, everybody clicking together. There was this incredible, not just organizational project, but just the idea that all these other women were doing the same thing at the same time. 50,000 digital images sent to New York a week later.
Wow.
Then we hired a group of photo editors from top women, again, top magazines, Newsweek, Vanity Fair, and we all sat in a room. They sat all day at the computers, editing each of the photographers. Then the creative team would come in at night, and we would sit together, eat Chinese food or some kind of takeout. It was really quite something. And then the pictures would go up on the board, and our photo editor, who was a man, would say, "Do I feel love in the room for this one?" And the hands would go up, or the hands wouldn't go up. And that's how we ended up with the 270 images of the book.
They are really just breathtaking. I mean, this is an incredible book.
Thank you.
And so I'm very excited to have you here. Now, what did you decide, Carol, about who the American woman is? What's your overall feeling?
Well, let me say that my role in the book was to write the essay. So while everybody else worked on April 8th, I traveled all over the country and worked and spent days with 12 different women, in addition to all of the other women who are in the book. And what I concluded is that the American woman today is whoever and whatever she wants to be.
Hallelujah.
She doesn't have to follow the rules of her mother or of her grandmother. Nobody says when a little girl, "I want to grow up and be an astronaut." Yes, dear. Great, go for it. So the opportunities for women today are literally limitless. Is there discrimination? Of course. Is there harassment? Yes. But that doesn't mean the opportunity isn't there. So who the American woman is anybody she wants to be.
What do you think it means to be an American woman?
I think that American women have a lot of burdens.
Yeah.
They are still the main nurturers and caretakers. The fact that men will now co-parent in some families, that there are men who will do dishes in some families. Most women are still the primary caretakers of their husbands, children, and parents.
Yes.
They are often also the breadwinner or the co-breadwinner in a family, so they maintain jobs. They are trying to have a little bit of a life for themselves. What women today want, and you'll probably hear me use this word a lot today, is balance. So every woman tries to carve out a little time to go to the gym, to belong to a book club, to do something that brings her some pleasure in life. So when I say I think there are a lot of burdens, there was a wonderful quote from one of the women I interviewed who had been a high-powered lawyer. I know we're going to talk about some of the stories. Pat Kruger, very good. It's so nice to be interviewed by someone who's read the book. Pat was a high-powered lawyer for a Fortune 300 company, and she gave it up to be a full-time mom. One of the things she said to me, by the time her second child came, she was doing a lot of traveling for business. She found herself on the phone all the time calling the nanny. Did you do this? Did you take care of that? Is this all right? And then she said, I realized there is no man who goes on a business trip and thinks to himself, what am I missing at home? Do I have to check on anything? And so that's what I mean by the burdens. Women, no matter what they're doing, are still doing something else as well.
Juggling all those balls.
Exactly, exactly.
Last question before we take a look at some of the pictures. Tell me what surprised you the most, or what interesting discovery you made.
Well, I was thrilled to see the diversity and opportunity among women. I was delighted to see the change in what used to be called feminism. Women today don't identify as feminists at all. They're not fighting to get at the table. They feel they've got a seat. The question is, what are they going to do with it? And then the word I used before, balance. Yeah. I was reading a speech recently by Sandra Day O'Connor where she talked about the fact that when she was a young woman, there was never a minute to read a book or have a cup of hot chocolate between her job and her kids and her there was never a moment for herself. Today, women want balance in their lives, and increasingly you'll find that they'll cut back on work, on ambition, on something in order to have a balance between work, family, career, and self. Self is the word that surprised me.
Wow, so interesting. All right, before we talk about the woman, we have to look at the image on page 12. You know, I have a sister who has 2 young boys. They play hockey, and you ask her if the family can get together on Thanksgiving, and she has to pull out this calendar that blows my mind, Carol. So tell us about this image.
Well, Kimberly lives in Northern California. She's a typical, Kimberly Brooks, a typical busy mom. She has 4 children, and she keeps track of their schedules in different color magic markers so she knows who has to go where when. She also helps her husband run a landscaping business. And this attests in some way to another thing that I found in the book, the creativity of women. Yeah. We are ingenious. If this doesn't work, we'll find another way to do it. If that doesn't work, then how about this? So here she figures out this is the way she can keep track of all her kids. She'll color code them.
Wonderful. And it makes me still say, has it come to this, Carol? All right, let's begin today's discussion with Sarah Blakely.
Oh,
wow. Who was she at 27? Who is she today?
At 27, Sarah Blakely was doing sales training for a fax machine company, and she was moonlighting as a stand-up comic because she was so bored and bemoaning the fact that she wasn't yet a millionaire. When she was 8 years old, she told her father, I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up, but I can tell you this, I'm going to earn all my own money so I can marry the garbage man if I want to. So she wanted to be successful. Sarah, I think, represents a very important quality in American women today, and a group. She is an entrepreneur, and more women today are deciding that rather than go into the business world, they're going to create their own businesses. So she got this idea one day. She cut off the feet of her pantyhose. She had white slacks and she didn't have the right underwear. So she cut the feet off her pantyhose, put on stilettos, went out dancing. She was very big on jiggling, so nothing jiggled. And she thought, every woman should have this. But, you know, where do you go? She called hosiery mills. They thought she was sent by Candid Camera, that it was a joke. She went to the library. She researched her own patents. She didn't have enough money to have a lawyer do it for her. And she badgered and badgered till she finally got a hosiery company that agreed to make her a prototype. Then she started knocking on doors, and she got Neiman Marcus to agree to test market the product for her. Well, of course, it went crazy. Oprah decided that it was her favorite product of the year, 2003, I think it was. And all of a sudden, the company took off. She makes $45 million today. $45 million.
Oh, Lord.
But she's also a very thoughtful, serious woman, and an amazingly fearless, although she's very fearful. She was on Sir Richard Branson's How to Be a Billionaire. She had to climb up 10,000 feet in the air in a hot air balloon to do one of these tests that they put her to. She's telling me the story. My knuckles are turning white. I said, how did you do that? She said, I use fear as a motivator.
Wow.
So she came in second. He gave her $750,000, and she started a foundation to help other women.
Wow, incredible story. You know, I always like the saying, if we can put one man on the moon, why not all of them? I have it up on my refrigerator as a joke. But in any event, she has said, if we can put a man on the moon, well, why don't we have comfortable high heels?
Yeah, she's going to enter. I said, when she took me to the airport, I said, what's next?
Yeah.
She said, I'm working on inventing comfortable stilettos. Just if we can put a man on the moon, why can't we have comfortable high heels?
And success really has not changed her, has it?
No, she is still, her friends say, the same Sarah she always was, fun-loving. There's a wonderful shot of her, I don't know if you showed it, where she's on a swing, because she loves to go swing to relax. She bought a beautiful townhouse, she furnished it, she put a disco in the basement with a bubble machine, because she likes to come home after work and dance to ABBA to relax.
Well, in the book you have the picture of her dancing.
Yeah, with all of her girlfriends.
With her girlfriends.
She's a
lovely.
real and gracious, and not only gracious but generous. She buys very expensive gifts for everyone. You know, this was interesting, Diane. I'm not sure if I had room to put it in the essay, but I asked her about dating and how men feel about the fact that she's 10 times richer than most of the men she goes out with, and she said, if they're uncomfortable with it, they don't go out with me. So she'll pick up a check. She has no qualms about doing what her money can do and sharing it.
Wonderful story.
Yeah.
Let's look at Pat and Paws. Tell us about these pictures, which I love, as you know.
I know that you're a great animal rights woman. Pat Derby lives in Northern California, in Sacramento. She worked in films for many years as an animal trainer. She worked with Flipper and Lassie, and she didn't like the way animals were treated when they were past their peak. And so she decided upon her retirement to create a retirement home primarily for large circus animals, but also for other performing animals. And she created this refuge. Her favorites are the elephants. She loves the elephants, and she has a pet, Tiny, whom she has.
Well, it's not tiny.
Yeah, not tiny at all. 91,000 pounds.
Oh,
I think
Lord.
the animals, she calls them 71. I'm not quite sure why. And this girlfriend of hers, her girl baby, she said is so smart that if she were human, she would have gone to Yale or Harvard.
Oh, wonderful story. Great pictures.
Yeah.
All right, now, Pat Kruger. Tell us about Pat.
I started to tell you a little about Pat before. Pat was the lawyer who left her practice, and when her children were, I think, 2 and 5, and she realized, which I think is a very important message for women, you can't have it all at the same time, but you can have it all not at the same time. So she said, I'm going to give up my career.
As a high-powered attorney.
As a high-powered attorney, and I'll get back to it eventually. Well, when she moved to this small town, it was not easy. First of all, she went from New York City, where she was the consummate New Yorker, going to concerts and museums. And she said in this small town, she took the New York Times to the mothers group. That did not go over well. And she had a very hard time adjusting. But she got breast cancer. And the community that she had begun to develop rallied around her, bringing her meals, taking the children to their lessons, things she said that never would have happened to her had she stayed in New York. Then her mother developed Alzheimer's, and she was able to have a day a week to go and take her mother out and spend. I spent a day with them actually, and her mother joined us. Very sweet woman who kept saying to Pat, have I been here before? And of course it was the same store she takes her every single week. It was very, but a sweet lady. She is now back at work. Her children are in junior high and high, so she works 2 days a week. She said, I didn't go brain dead. But what she also has said is that what I've learned is that women need to play more. So she takes 1 day a week now that she sets aside as her play day, and she'll have lunch with a friend, she'll go on a hike, she'll go biking, something that is just for her. So she's found great balance in her life, and she has no regrets. She said, what could be more important in the world than raising good children?
And she redirected her drive very
Exactly.
successfully.
She volunteers, she at the school, the library. She took all this lawyer energy, and she just, as you say, she beautifully redirected it, and now she's back doing part work, but part mothering. That, she says, is something she will never give up.
Wonderful story. All right, we have to look at the skater mom.
Oh, don't you love this, the skater mom?
Oh, my goodness gracious, look at this.
Well, you know, it's a wonderful side story about this. The Ann Day, who photographed this, on April 8th, gets to the house early in the morning. It had rained. Black worms came out, covering
Lord.
the streets of Connecticut, where this woman was going out with her 2 daughters, by the way. She brought her daughters into skateboarding, not the other way around. And they are all champions. And it was, how are we going to photograph them with these worms all over the place? Fortunately, the sun came out, dried up the worms, and they went out to shoot. But she had skateboarded before her girls did, and it was something that she loved. So she got them interested in it so she could continue to do it. And now it's the family passion.
Her husband must just shake his head. Can you imagine those breakfast conversations?
You know, I don't know how he reacts, but I expect that he is very proud of the women in his life.
It just left me, you know, saying, holy cow, it makes me look moderate.
Yeah, and you, the weightlifter, I'm sure could do the exact same thing. But you see, I mean, they're really daredevils.
Yeah.
And she's not a kid. I think she's, what, at least in her late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah. But
With
you
the
know, you
helmet,
look at the picture of her in the helmet, she looks like she's 10,
She
honest
looks like
to
a
God.
kid. Well, sports,
Yeah.
as you well know, keeps you
Yeah,
young.
yeah, great story. All right, tell us about me.
Oh, me, Moa, I love this story.
Yeah.
I love the story. Me was one of the women that I spent the day with in Minnesota. She was born in Laos. Her parents decided they wanted something better for their children. So with just the clothes on their back, they sneaked out of their village, trekked 19 days, cold, wet, sleeping on the ground, till they reached a refugee camp. And there they were taken in. They spent 3 years in the refugee camp and finally were resettled in America. They went to a small town in Wisconsin where they had relatives. People there didn't like women, families with slanty eyes and funny accents. They were terribly discriminated against. I can't even say this on television, but they did things on her lawn, the little boys. They called her names. It was horrible. But me said, I'm not going to get mad. I'm just going to be better than everybody else. So she was a wonderful soccer player. In fact, when she was in 6th grade, one of the little girls said, it's okay, Me, that you're not popular with the popular kids, because you're the most popular with all of us who are unpopular. She talks a lot about the opportunities that you get in America. They were so poor, her parents could never get jobs better than a janitor. Her clothes were always used. The only thing that wasn't used was her underwear, because her mother said that's where she drew the line, and she sewed the underwear herself. Her first pair of shoes that were her own she got in college. But she also got a scholarship to Brown University. She was able to get another scholarship to get a master's degree in public planning or administration. Then she went to law school. And when an opening came in her town, the mayor decided not to rerun for the legislature. She ran for his seat, and she won, and she is now a state senator. At the same time, she's busy juggling her life as a mom. She has parents. Her mother-in-law lives with them and helps take care of the children. She's very much involved in her Hmong community. She is the champion of the disadvantaged. The day I sat in her office, they traipsed in one after the other with their social problems, because she represents what you can do if you come from nothing and what's possible.
Just is a wonderful, inspiring story.
Yeah, a wonderful woman.
And I read in the book she's given herself, quote, permission to be fat.
Don't you love that
yes,
quote?
Yes, I do.
Well, I said to her, you know, how do you juggle everything? And one of the answers was, I gave myself permission to be fat. If I'm a size 10 or I'm a size 12, I just get a bigger dress because I can't. She used to be very athletic. I can't run, I don't have as much time. So I say to myself, that's something, it's okay. I mean, she's not fat, but she doesn't worry about her weight because she said something had to give, and that was the thing I could let go of.
Wonderful.
More women need that message,
yes,
right?
Wonderful story. We need to take a break, so to our viewing audience, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Earning your law degree shouldn't burden you with overwhelming debt. At Massachusetts School of Law at Andover, we believe it should be affordable, achievable, and yes, even an enjoyable first step to your successful career. We believe in an atmosphere of support, flexible class scheduling, and hiring professors with real-world experience, ensuring you leave law school with the professional skills you need. We are the most affordable law school in New England, and we believe in you.
The Massachusetts School of Law. Your future starts here.
Can you tell which of these children was not born free? Can you tell which of these children was not born equal? Can you tell which of these children does not deserve to be treated with dignity? We can't either. Human right number one. We are all born free and equal. What are human rights? Find out at youthforhumanrights.org.
Taking the first step towards your legal career can be an overwhelming task at many other law schools. Lucky for you, the Massachusetts School of Law is not one of those schools. Applying is easy. No LSATs required. Scheduling is flexible with daytime and evening classes, and learning is remarkably rewarding since all of our professors have real-world experience. All of this and much more at the most affordable law school in New England.
The Massachusetts School of Law. Your future starts here.
Welcome back to the Educational Forum. We're here with Carol Celine discussing the book for which she was the principal essayist, and we're taking a look at the day in the life of the American woman. Carol, we got to look at these red-hatitude women. They're enjoying life.
Oh my goodness. Well, you all know what the Red Hat Society is, these women over 50 whose sole purpose in life is to get together and have a good time.
Yeah.
In fact, I was speaking yesterday in Andover, and a woman came in a red hat, and she was from the Red Hat Society, not this group, but another Red Hat Society. This is really, I think, a wonderful idea. A woman decided that, it comes from a poem, When I Get Old, I Shall Wear Purple and a Red Hat. And the woman decided that she was going to create a group that would just get together and have a good time. And of course, the thing exploded. There are chapters all over the world today. And we could not do a book on the American women without having the red hats. And I love, aren't they blowing bubbles or something in one of the pictures? Yeah, there she is. I think, is that bubbles or whatever? Yeah, I think she's blowing bubbles. And I mean, how many women do you know are in their 60s that still blow bubbles? I loved it.
Yeah, it's great. All right, now, describe for the audience today's bride, or bride-to-be.
Well, you don't quite know who today's bride is going to be, because there you see this lovely woman kissing the high school sweetheart. By the way, this wedding took place in Las Vegas because that was her dream. Why she wanted to be married in Las Vegas in a wedding chapel, I don't know. But you also see her here feeding the baby that they had before they got married. Because as she said, it never seemed to me that you have to do things in a fixed order.
I think that's the moral of the story.
You know, there's a wonderful
comment about a woman who said that a true friend will have a shower for your child, whether it's a baby shower first or a wedding shower first, whichever happens to come in whatever order. Because today women do things the way they do them. I was at a wedding recently where they walked down the aisle holding the baby.
Wow.
Their couple is 40. She got pregnant. They were planning to be married anyway, so she had the baby. And 3 months later, we all went out for the wedding. And the three of them went down the aisle. It was wonderful.
Different time.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, where do we go now? We have to meet the traveling minister. Hard story with a beautiful ending.
Oh, my goodness. Sister Kay. I love this woman. When I went out to Detroit to be with her, first of all, you have to tell you, her faith is her life. The message of this story is that faith can change your life. She was a divorced mother, 2 little girls, supporting herself by working, leasing cars during the week and managing a hairdresser salon somewhere on the weekends. She had gone to beauty school because they told her she wasn't smart enough to do anything else. In fact, when I talked about her wonderful ponytail and how terrific it looked, she whips it off. She says, "Honey, this isn't real," and she gives me this whole demonstration of how to do your hair. Well, one day a brochure advertising a Bible course arrived in her mailbox, and she signed up, and she literally found Jesus and found her voice. She began to study Bible, and she joined a very large evangelical church and worked her way up through the ranks. Today she has her own ministry. It's called the Powerhouse Ministry, and she gets up every morning. I never met a woman quite like this, and she told me, I get up about 4 o'clock in the morning and I talk to God. Wow. I said, "You talk to God?" And she said, "Yeah, out loud. We have a conversation." And that is true. God is there so in her life and in her head that they talk like you and I are speaking. I mean, I don't know where she hears the answers, but she actually talks to God out loud. Then she exercises to a Richard Simmons tape because she's trying to lose 100 pounds. And then she conducts her life as a preacher. She'll go now, I think we saw a picture, here you see her, she does a lot of lectures. But she prays, she goes into nursing homes and she'll pray with people. And when I was in one of the nursing homes with her, she started to speak in tongues. I've never seen this happen. She's praying with this woman, and then all of a sudden she lapses into and she's speaking in tongues, and then just as quickly she's back and they're praying quietly together.
And the reaction of the audience when she does this?
Well, they're so into what she's doing with them that it feels perfectly natural.
Wow.
And but she's funny. She was praying with a couple of the nurses' aides, and they're all holding hands, and she said, "Lord, is there enough faith in this room? Because if there is not, you take some from my account and you put it in theirs." I mean, this is how she talks. She's got these incredible expressions that she uses. She said to me that this is not a job. This is who I am. This is not my vocation. The Lord is my life.
Wow. And I think it's worth mentioning to the audience, this is a woman who found her husband
having an affair with her best friend. So when I say she was down and out, she was down. She told me, and I'm not sure I wrote it in the story, that she tried to commit suicide.
Wow.
And when she stuttered. Oh, that was another thing. She stuttered as a child. So she didn't grow up with this great self-image. She had older brothers and sisters who were much brighter than she was, and so she never had much of a sense of herself. So her discovering her faith truly brought her inside out. She still struggles with things. She tends to be rather shy when she's not on.
Wow.
As she said, she doesn't go to a lot of parties. Her daughter lives with her now, and they were estranged for a period, and that was a very tough time. I mean, she's not had it easy, but she has an incredibly strong faith, and her energy and optimism are just infectious.
And perseverance.
Yes, absolutely. I had a wonderful day with her. It was like that, for me, the experience of this book, meeting a Mimua, meeting a Sister Kay, women who I just don't encounter in my daily life, and spending a whole day with them and having them open up to me the way they did. I think that's a very important part of this book, Diane, is the trust
that was established between all the photographers and me with my subjects, women will open up to other women. Had men worked on this book, and Lord knows I have nothing against men, but had men worked on this book, no man could have gone into a woman's life for a day and come out with the kind of trust and the kind of intimacy that we were able to develop. I mean, one of the co-authors, Sharon Walmuth, who was my partner in Sisters and Mothers and Daughters, her subject let her photograph her in the shower. Wow. You're not going to let a man do that.
Yeah. When did you write the pieces? You'd go spend the day with them? Did you go home then and write? Or?
Well, in some cases, I started working on it with a regular tape recorder, and I lost one of the interviews, and another when the tape broke while it was being transcribed. So it was horrible. So then I switched to digital, which I had never used. Mm-hmm. So I would essentially come home and electronically send the interview to a transcriber. She would send back 70, 80, 90 pages of transcription, and I would then sit down and have to boil that into essentially 1,000 words.
Wow. That
That was very, very daunting. I did half the interviews before the shoot day and the other half after. And the book was shot, as we mentioned, on April 8th. It went to the printer on July 4th. So this was a very, very compressed timetable.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
take a bow for
It
that.
was
Boy, that is
a lot
something.
of go to bed late and get up early.
Yeah, I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
Another series of pictures that I loved in your essay on the new sheriff in town.
Oh, Lupe Valdez.
Lupe, yes.
Again, a woman, newly elected sheriff of Dallas County. Not a big deal, but she has 4 strikes against her. She is Hispanic. She is a woman. She is a Democrat in solid bush country, and she is a lesbian.
Yeah.
And when her opponent tried to use that and say she has a gay agenda, she said, I am what I am, and what you want is a sheriff who's going to be upfront with you so that you know what you're getting. She didn't get herself pulled into the mud. She was a sharecropper's daughter. The family traveled around picking vegetables wherever there was work. None of the other 8 brothers and sisters went to school. And it was finally, I think she was the youngest, and her mother said, that's it, we're setting down roots, she has to go to school. Her father was not particularly interested in her getting much of an education. He said, Hispanic women get married, they have babies, you don't need to do better. But she defied him, and that was very, very hard. And she went to a school in another district so she could get a better education. She was not a particularly good student. Took her 6 years to get through college. And the only job she could get when she got out was a prison guard in the county jail. Being a woman, being Hispanic, they gave her the worst shifts, the night shifts. She was constantly discriminated against. She said to me, I used to want to say to the guys, I'm just as good as you are, but I could never do that. And then she began to have to deal with her sexuality. First of all, she was very religious, and she couldn't believe that God would love her if she was gay. So she struggled mightily over that. Then she was scared to death. By that time, I think she was a customs agent. The government found out she was a lesbian, she'd lose her job. Took her 15 years to come out of the closet and to get to a point where she felt that she could be open about being a lesbian. She is so tough and so gentle. She writes thank you notes. She writes sympathy cards to everybody. She doesn't wear a watch because she doesn't want people to think she's too busy to talk to them. You'll love this. She adopts her dogs from the SPCA.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. And they're her little children. Yeah. She told me, it was very sweet. I said, what's missing in your life now, Lupe? And she said, well, I would like to have someone to share it with. So like all women, we all want partners. We want to have a person in our life, no matter who we are or how successful we are, how hard we work, we want a partner to share our life with.
All of the citizens really respect her now, correct?
Oh my God, immensely.
Yeah.
And you know, one night, I know I couldn't write about this, I didn't have time, but one night when I was with her, a group of the police were going out on a large raid to bring back people who had warrants against them that they were they were knocking on doors, and the nightsticks and the guns, and they were all gathered in a parking lot at a school, and it was cold and damp, and they've got their bulletproof vests, and there's Lupe walking around among them saying, now you come back safely, you be careful. She was like a mother hen. But God, tough. She said, I've done that. I know what it is to break down the door with a gun in your hand. So she's got these 2 marvelous sides to her, and people just love her. She's a very special woman.
Well, we wish her the best.
Yeah, she's going to be fine.
Okay, now, Dr. Ann.
Oh, Dr. Ann. My co-author Sharon Walmuth shot, I was looking for the photograph here, this incredible photograph. Dr. Ann is a breast cancer surgeon, a single mom raising 2 teenage sons. She was always an equestrian. She started riding when she was very young. She even took her horse to college. She went to Goucher because they let her bring her horse. So today she lives on a farm, and she has an equestrian school on the farm and a woman who runs the school for her. She's still, you can see her, she gets up in the morning, she feeds her animals. She then
look at
goes,
that.
and she says that working with her animals and learning how to touch an animal and earn an animal's trust has taught her how to be with her patients. And that her animals, here she is with her sons, she's very athletic. They're in Philadelphia, we have a lot of sculling on the river, and she's out sculling with them. But the balance in her life, she can't sit still. She is a frenetic woman. So when she's sitting still, she's knitting Afghans.
Wow.
She never sits still. She's a quite remarkable woman, manages to do everything. Her boys are the focus of her life, but obviously she doesn't get as much time with them. Every night when she comes home, she doesn't cook. They order Chinese takeout. They sit on her bed. She goes through her charts. They do her homework, and they're together.
A woman after my own heart.
You know
Don't learn how to cook.
Yeah. She is not a cook. She is not a cook. There's everything else she can do, but she is not a cook.
Oh.
Yeah, she's a very, very inspirational story.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, now we have to look at how a former model becomes a race car driver.
I love this.
You got to tell me
Leilani.
this one.
Let me tell you, unfortunately, we didn't use in the book any of her drop-dead gorgeous pictures. But I want to tell you, this woman is a dead ringer for Catherine Zeta-Jones, and she was her stand-in in the movies.
Honestly.
Oh, yeah. She is beautiful.
Wow.
Curvaceous, beautiful. She was taken, and she has her college degree in biosciences, and smart. She was taken one day racing with some friends as, an activity. Let's go out to the racetrack and run around. Well, she was so thrilled by the adrenaline rush she got from car racing. She started to go whenever she had a spare minute, and she was hooked. As they say, if you race cars, the first time it hits you, it's like drugs. You're dead, you're addicted. So eventually she decided to give up her career in film, and she was making very nice money. She relocated to North Carolina to the NASCAR headquarters. She's truly living hand to mouth. She makes a little money as a commentator for one of the local TV stations on NASCAR. She works at a shop that does NASCAR racing. She's just gotten a sponsor.
Oh.
And so hopefully next year she will be able to be on the beginning NASCAR circuit.
I read in the essay that she had like $14 in her checking account.
Yeah.
But the dream to be a NASCAR driver.
She went, I'm glad you reminded me of that story. She had an interview with a potential sponsor, and she had $14, and she had a pair of black slacks, and her boyfriend took her out and bought her a nice shirt to go with the pants because he said, you can't go looking like that. I mean, no vanity. She is just hell-bent on driving race cars. She'll do it. She'll do it.
And I'll be there cheering.
Yeah, we all will. We all will. And again, that's a field, by the way, where women are not very well accepted. She was asked to pose in Playboy because, as I said, she's quite beautiful. And she could certainly have used the money. But the reason she refused was not so much her moral issues, and there were certainly those, but she said, if once I appeared in Playboy, I would never be taken seriously as a race car driver. I loved that.
Good for her.
Yeah, she was not, she said, look, I'm attractive, I'll use my looks to get me, but they're never going to be what make people pay attention to me on the track.
How right she is. Carol, we need to take a second break, so I'll ask you to stay, and we'll be right back. Please stay tuned.
From day one, I knew I took the right step.
The Massachusetts School of Law is challenging.
But you feel welcomed and supported at every turn.
You're learning the professional skills you need to get hired.
From professors with real-world experience.
Trust me, that makes a huge difference.
I now have a job I love. And the best part is, I'm not in debt.
No LSATs required. Teachers that make a difference at the most affordable law school in New England, the Massachusetts School of Law. Your future starts here.
Now, Krista, make sure you stay with her the whole time. She's new to the country. This is her first day. This is a brand new country. It's a whole different culture.
Gonna be okay.
Now, make sure you stay with her the whole time. I'll be here right after school to pick you up.
Okay, Mom.
Okay, have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye. Ignore my mom. She's so annoying. She's totally freaking out about this whole thing. She freaks out about everything. She always does that. Ugh. Ignore my mom. So, you ready for your first day in the wicked castle of doom? I mean, like, seriously, it's so boring. I don't know how they could put us through this, like, every single day. How many schools do you have in your village? None.
The passion was always there to study law. And when I finally attended MS Law, I finally realized this is what I want to do. They helped me further develop my passion to become an attorney, to become a lawyer, someone who can work in a practical setting. And what do I mean by that? At MS Law, they taught you practical skills, what it would be like to argue a motion, what it would be like to try a case, what it would be like to deal with real-life situations and real-life law. And for that, I will be forever grateful to MS Law.
Welcome back to the Educational Forum. Before the break, Carol, we were talking about the young lady who is a race car driver. Her name again is?
It's Leilani Munter.
Wow.
And you can look her up on her website, leilanimunter.com, and really see how an accomplished she is, not just attractive.
Wonderful story. Now we need to turn to something more serious.
Yes.
Tell us about Maureen Manning's life.
Maureen Fanning. This is a very beautiful story. The reason that this story is in the book, although we wanted to do a story about autism, is that the photographer, we asked a lot of our photographers what interests you, and the photographer who shot this was interested in autism because it was in her family.
Wow.
And so she knew of Maureen Fanning. Maureen has two children. One is 9, this little boy here, and then a 17-year-old, and both of her sons have severe autism. She is raising them alone as a single mother because her husband, Jack Fanning, was a fireman killed in 9/11. And his dream, he worried all the time what would happen to the boys when they were old and they couldn't care for them anymore. And so he always wanted to start a home for autistic adults. So when Maureen got her settlement from 9/11, and here she is raising more money. They're preparing for a large fundraiser. She took the money and then added the money that she's raised in the community to start the Jack Fanning Memorial Foundation. And this summer, the first Jack Fanning home for autistic adults opened.
Wow.
She's a remarkable woman. Here are some pictures of Jack that she keeps around the house, very much alive in her life. And I'm not sure if we saw the photo where she sleeps with his hat next to her in the bed, which is one of the lovely photos that's in the book.
You really look at the photos and you really get a sense of this woman's life, and it's just an incredible story.
Yeah, I frankly, when I read a story like this, Diane, I do not know how a woman copes.
Yeah.
The sense of loss, the sense of daily struggle, and I suspect in many ways it's a great lesson in the fact that you must go on.
Yes.
And what she has done is turn her grief into something meaningful and positive. So instead of taking the money and doing whatever, she decided to take the money and create this foundation and do something that would give her life meaning outside of simply taking care of these boys.
You know, I don't mean to jump ahead, but your very last essay in the book, which I hope we'll get to, Ruth talks about You know, when you're dead and buried, what you hope is something that you cared about significantly, you've made very positive impact on. And it brings it right back to Maureen.
That's a beautiful tie-in, Diane, and thank you so much for making it. I think that women are, many people are interested in things bigger than themselves. And while we wanted ordinary women in this book, what we call everyday heroes. And I think Maureen is truly an everyday hero. You know, here we have Ruth Duckworth. Ruth's family, Ruth was raised in her early life in Germany, and she didn't even know she was Jewish until it came out one day by accident, and they had to flee to England. So they were lucky that the whole family got out. She eventually made her way to the United States. She is one of the foremost ceramic artists in the world today. Very, very famous. She lives alone. She had a bad marriage in a converted pickle factory. She is 86 years old. 5 years ago, she broke her leg when she was on a trip to the Antarctica to study the colors of the ice for her work. And so she now has an elevator. That was her compensation. She put an elevator in. The day that we were with her, did we show the photograph of her driving?
That's what I was just going to ask them to put up. Oh my goodness!
Do you have the photograph of her doing her?
Oh, it is
if they
priceless.
can tell, I'll try
with
to,
the little,
well,
with her eyes over the.
Yeah. Well,
hopefully we'll get
it.
But
we were with her.
On.
We were with her the day that she had to take her driving test, because when you're at a certain age in Chicago, every 2 years you have to be retested.
Oh boy, yeah.
Well, Ruth is fiercely independent. I mean, that is what is most important to her. And she said to the test woman, "You must make sure I pass this test, because I cannot lose my mobility and I cannot lose my independence." Well, she passed the test, and the night that I was with her, she was leaving at maybe 7 o'clock to drive to a nearby college campus. They were installing a large ceramic piece of hers, and she wanted to make sure the lighting was right. 86 years old.
You know, I have an aunt, Aunt Mary, who had a tumor removed from her lung last week, and I went up yesterday to the hospital, and I brought this book, and I said, "You've got to look at Ruth," because I look at Ruth and I see Aunt Mary.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. She wasn't sure that she would have time to be interviewed for this book. She was too busy.
Wow. Incredible. All right, let's go to the green zone.
Yes. Well, we were in Iraq, and of course we had to do a photograph of a young woman who was serving in the armed forces. And this is, I think it's, Stephanie is the photographer. She is serves in a medical unit. She is she's the only woman in this medical unit.
Yes.
And what she said, which was very sweet, is that while she's plenty tough and she is an expert markswoman, she is also very much a girly girl, and when the care packages come, she's the first one to look for the ones that have nail polish.
Yes,
she likes to paint her toenails under her combat boots. Yeah.
All right, let's go to Ms. Kennedy, Katie. 21-year-old artist. Is she typical of an artist?
Well, I don't know that many 21-year-old artists, but I can tell you that when I was assigned to do Katie, I thought, what in the world am I going to talk about with an 18, 20-year-old artist? She turned out to be, I mean, especially one with yellow hair, which she had at the time, and rings in her nose and her mouth. She turned out to be a very thoughtful, very opinionated, a very interesting young woman. Her sketchbooks were amazing. Her ruminations on life blew me away. I love, here you see her living, her apartment was one that most mothers would not ever want to walk into, but they do clean it once a month, and I think this happened to be cleaning day. This is her here in her studio. She's still experimenting. She has no idea with where her art is going to go, and she told me, oh, this is one of my favorite shots. This is a barely clear picture of her room. But I said to her, what were you doing? She goes through this every morning because she's never sure who she wants to be that day. So she has to go through all the clothes, which are everywhere. I mean, there's no such thing as a drawer.
No order.
Yeah. And she tries on 10 things until she finds one that fits her mood that day, and then she gets dressed, because I thought this was something special. Here she is in a dumpster. She likes to rummage through dumpsters to find stuff to make art out of. She's very creative, and she says, and I find wonderful things for the apartment as well. But she said to me, I'm very glad, here she is at a party, that I don't know where I'm going yet in life, because if I knew what I was going to do, there would be no adventure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
she's a great
certainly
character.
a different time.
Yep.
Okay, now we have to take a look quickly at the Muslim sisters.
Yeah, are they? No, I don't think they were sisters. I think that this particular woman, who is, I also believe she is a rocker, isn't she?
Yeah, I think she is.
But
yes.
she's doing a very ancient Muslim art of tattooing, and she goes around to Muslim women and teaches them how to do this art. So she and the rock star stuff she does in her burqa, and she's very much a modern woman, but she's also very connected to her faith.
Yeah, it keeps her traditional as well as her modern ways.
Absolutely.
And then I know two sisters that you did cover.
Oh yes, I love these.
Tell us about the Soul Sisters.
We actually met these women, Anne and Sylvia, when we were on the Jane Pauley show, and they were brought in as an example of sisters when we did a show on sisters. When somebody dies in Little Rock, Arkansas from a very wealthy family, the first phone call goes to the undertaker, and the second one goes to Sylvia and Ann to cater the funeral. They are the caterers to the rich and famous all over Little Rock. They catered in the governor's mansion. Bill Clinton, great fan of their sweet rolls, used to hang out in the kitchen so they could get them when they first came out of the oven. These women have lived together, worked together, raised their children together without husbands all of their lives. They are the sweetest, dearest. I cannot tell you how darling and loving they are to each other. They take care of each other. They said what a comfort it is to know that down the hall there is somebody that I can totally depend on.
Trust.
Yeah. And they shared their children, like they mothered, they co-parented. They were raised, by the way, during the segregationist era in Little Rock. Their sister, in fact, was sent away to school to visit relatives in California because she could not go to Little Rock. It was not integrated in those days. And yet they never felt poor. Their mother always worked for white families, and the families would send home all of their clothing and all the leftovers for their parties, so there was always food. They always felt like the queens of their neighborhood, and because they were raised not to feel discrimination from their family, they never really felt it in the larger world. But their mother was the first black woman hired to work at a women's club tea room downtown, and there was quite a hue and cry in the local papers that they were hiring a black woman to work in this white's tea room. But the club woman stuck up for her, and they now have become an institution. Everybody knows Ann and Sylvia.
Am I remembering right? They work out of a church basement?
They do now. They had worked for years out. This is the kitchen where they work. There was this very large church basement where they had installed a kitchen, hoping, it's a big church, hoping to do more catering and parties, and it didn't work out. So they now have allowed the sisters to come in and use it. But for years, they worked out of this dinky little kitchen that they showed me in this women's club that you wouldn't believe. And everywhere you go with them, it's the hugging and the kissing and the howdy and the love you. And it's there. When we went shopping one day they buy a lot of their foods at a supermarket, and they were preparing for a party. They walk into this market. A woman jumps out of the line, throws her arms around them. How have you been? I miss you. I haven't seen you. I mean, they are local celebrities.
Wow.
They're darling.
What a
loving,
great
loving,
story.
Loving. Taking care of each other. You sit down and rest. No, it's all right. No, you do this. Don't you think you're tired? I mean, they're just adorable.
Great story. Carol, who is Major Courage?
Oh, I love this story. This is Tammy Duckworth. Tammy Duckworth is one of the millions of people in this country who think that our nation is worth dying for. Here you see her. She had both of her legs blown off in Iraq. She was a helicopter pilot for the National Guard. And she would do it again. She was raised mostly out of the United States, and her father worked for the UN. And when she came back to this country, she wanted to do something to show her gratefulness. She's having a very hard time, because you can see in this photograph that one of her legs was blown off right at the thigh, and she only has 5 inches. It's very difficult to attach a prosthesis, and they're working very hard
to find one that she can walk with comfortably. Thank God for technology. She will praise to kingdom come the work that is being done for her at Walter Reed Army Hospital. This is her husband. They are a very devoted couple. They never planned to have children, and he is incredibly supportive. There they are side by side. He always says that his name is Brian, that he kept his maiden name because Duckworth was her maiden name, and he kept his own name. She says that someday they're going to retire to Hawaii. She's going to go to the beach wearing her prosthesis and painted toenails. She said, I came by these scars, honestly, I have nothing to hide. And if anybody asks me what happened, I'm going to tell them I was in a bar fight and they should see what the other chick looks like. She was more.
Wow, huh?
I cried a lot that day.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, journalists are supposed to be objective, but I must say, while I was interviewing her, particularly in the room where all of these amputees are working, getting their therapy, there were several times I had to excuse myself and go to the ladies' room because I really was so teary.
Yeah, I had a mom who was a double amputee, and boy, it's a
Remarkable.
life that's really
and
remarkable.
the patriotism. That was the other thing that struck me. In my daily life, I don't come across a lot of people who are spouting patriotic thoughts about America. There were a lot of friends who are against the war and anti-this and anti-that. And to meet people who really cherish this country and what it stands for and what the opportunities of this country can provide, like a Mimua, it was incredibly moving and inspirational to me. And I hope the women who read this book, who give it to other women as a gift, will find that same kind of inspiration.
Yes, I agree. Okay, let's take a look at the photographs of one of the photographers whose mom had Alzheimer's.
Oh, this is a lovely story. This is Jeannie Ash. She's the widow of Arthur Ashe, the tennis champion. And her choice was to document the life of her mother, who was in a nursing home. As you can see here, her mother doesn't have a clue who she is. Yeah. Sometimes the mother will, she'll give her mother a kiss and she'll smile back, but she doesn't have any idea who she is. And she wanted, Jeannie wanted to show all of the women that are necessary to take care of just her mother. And it truly takes a village. There is a whole team of people that are necessary. You can see she's looking in the mirror and kind of saying, who is this woman I don't recognize? You see the fear in her voice. Yeah. She's just had her head washed. And she's very sad. She's very sweet, but very sad. And I think the pictures copy this so beautifully. Here she is with her entire team of caretakers. That's a lot of people.
Yes, it is.
And that's in a single day. That's what it takes to take care of her.
Carol, the last woman we'll have time to meet is the Queen of Bluegrass.
Oh, Rhonda, yes. Oh, such fun. Rhonda Vincent is, as you say, the Queen of Bluegrass. This is a woman who has been named 5 times the Bluegrass Female Performer of the Year. But she is also a wife, a mother. She spends, I love this picture of her shaving her legs. She lives in this trailer 300 days a year with the 4 guys in her band. And she is very much feminine. Here she's in a diner. Is she in the diner? No, she's in her trailer here. No, she is in a diner. She is in a diner, yeah. Calling home, checking on her girls. She has 2 daughters. This is the back of the trailer. She has the nicest quarters. The guys just have beds. And she works, this is her daughter, who is palling around with one of the fiddlers in the band, and sometimes her daughter will join her, and here she is signing autographs. She is the most down-to-earth, friendly, sweet woman. Their parents discovered she could sing when she was 3 years old. This is the bus that they travel in. Her sponsor is Martha White. When she was 3 years old, they were going to a birthday party, and the parents were humming Happy Birthday, and Rhonda started to harmonize with them. Wow. So they said, oh, put her right in the family act. She's really been singing since she's a kid, and lately her career has totally taken off, and she's just a real wonderful example of how you can have a great career, you can have a marriage, you can be a good mother, you can raise decent children, you can do it all. You can do it all.
And Carol, we're out of time.
Oh, but we're having so much fun.
Thank you so much. You'll have to come back. And what's the next book?
Well, I can't tell yet.
Okay.
I have a book I'm trying to sell, but it hasn't sold yet, so I'm not sure.
All right. Well, I hope you'll come back when it comes out.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you.
To our viewing audience, until next time, be well. Thanks for joining us.